Hey everyone, look, I didn't know when it became so controversial, this spinal flexion idea, but let's just kind of get to the bottom of this for a second. One, if you're gonna have a normal joint, it needs to do what a joint does, right? So imagine if we're like, no, you don't extend your elbow. It only flexes halfway. Like, that's ridiculous, right? Hip, same thing. So the spine is the same thing. So we can say is your spine isn't healthy and normal unless it can extend and it can flex.
Correct.
Now, so before you panic, we're not advocating for lots and lots of loaded spinal flexion because hard to grade that, how much exposure, that just turns out to be a poor expression of the system, right? But we see rounding all the time. And more importantly, we see lots of rounding in global positions, right? So we've talked about this ad infinitum, like it's okay. I mean, we have been deep into this, but what I want to talk about a little bit today is some of the ways you can be programming in some spinal flexion so it just doesn't happen, right? Like spontaneously under gigantic loads. Okay, so check this out. We've got Diane. The normal way that we see spinal flexion happening is, or people programming is through the Jefferson curl, right? So Diane grabs the barbell, and what's easy about this is there's always a barbell out. And sometimes with the spine, we need a little bit of input. So what's great about the Jefferson curl is that it feels great. And by the way, if she just curls down, trying to think segment by segment, what we're trying to do is just introduce a little bit of graded motion, nice and slow. Her belly is getting pulled in. She's not letting her belly go out, right? And just hanging out. And she's got excellent range. Now the issue is, we actually don't always get the kind of flexion even through the system. So some aspects will move really well, some will move less. In fact, we don't even care about that, but if we see some segments that don't go, that's something that we kind of can minister to. But this one is greatly limited by how much hip flexion you have. So if you're missing a ton of hip flexion, so if your pelvis comes up, come a little higher, then you're stuck here, then all of the rest of your Jefferson curl has to come from the back. So the Jefferson curl is a perfect way to tie in hip flexion to this. Thank you. And we would expect to see that in any piked position, right? So if you're just sitting on the ground in a pike and rounding forward and touching your toes, that's the same shape. Okay, so a couple ways that we can think about my favorite ways besides the Jefferson curl. So we've got a peanut here. This is the Gemini. And I want to show you that we can now go from this global position, loaded, into, because this is sometimes the first thing people go, let's go heavy and grade it. So if Diane gets on her back, the first thing she can do is just put that in. And what she can do now is actually just move into a little flexion and extension. So she extends, and look, just by doing that graded motion now, we're even having a bigger range. But what we're doing is with blocking that with that peanut at that one motion segment, we're actually encouraging this segment to move a little bit more. So if we have the whole system trying to kind of do it all at once with the Jefferson curl, now we've got one segment at a time doing it. So this is an easy way to grade that and to begin to expose people to spinal flexion and segmentally if they are missing it. Now, one of our favorite ways to judge this up is if I hand Diane a little bit of a weighted ball. Ready? Okay, she's got that. That's just a 30, but that gives her a little input and gives her a place to rock, and now she can easily be putting that flexion into the system. So another way at the end of the training session to be putting a little motion in, and look what happened. She was started automatically to add a little bit of rotation, add a little diagonal, and so there's all of these fun corners in this controlled range of motion that she can manage. Now, to zhuzh this up further, we can also have Diane work on her breathing, because what we see is that people just go from kind of crappy breath hold to breath hold. And what we're interested in is, do you have access to that flexion in a fully extended breath full position and a fully sort of exhale, mechanically ventilated, sort of deficient position? I'm interested in challenging the tissues at both ends of the spectrum. So in this position now, Diane can roll or take a big breath, roll up, and then challenge that breathing in this controlled way, one segment at a time. Make sense? So now I'm going to show you one of my ways I do this all the time, so dismount from that, Di. We call this the Tower of London. So what's going to happen is Diane's going to get on her knees. Another global way to work on this. And what she's going to do is she's going to take the biggest breath in she can, and she's going to fold forward, holding that breath. So fills up the belly, folds forward, and she's going to try to explode her back on the bag of air that's trapped in her lungs. So huge breath, fold forward. And what she gets here is like this feeling of, oh, it's gonna pop. Do you feel that? Feel it, feel it, feel it. Now watch this. She exhales all the way, right? Now she can take a couple breaths trying to refill that spot. Get back in there. Breathe in that spot, breathe in that spot. And the reason we call it the Tower of London is there's actually a device in the Tower of London that's like a wishbone that they would crank down over people and crush them until they couldn't breathe, until they would literally suffocate to death to torture. And I was like, that is a great mobilization, right? If you can torture people with this. So look at this. What we've done is taken some of that load out of the system, right? We're just making it easier to have this flexion plus flexion position, but not necessarily loading it so heavy duty with just, if people don't have the tissue range. Because the goal is, thank you, good job, Dime. That one is the one that gets me the most. Is we want to make sure that we are exposing our athletes to flexion. That's why we teach kipping on both sides. That's why we teach pistols and rolling and throwing things and somersaults and the million other things that we do around spinal flexion. So this idea that you have to be a robot, impossible, right? You're gonna need to be able to flex. But is your rounded spine the best position to Olympic lift in?
Probably not. I wouldn't recommend it.
It's more difficult to receive in that position, right? I think that's really the key, is that what we end up seeing is, these more mid-range positions handle loads better than some of these end-range positions on either side, flexion or extension. But again, we're interested in making sure that our athletes have access to that movement language. So how you program that is ultimately going to be up to you. But when you're putting these things in, keep an eye on your breathing, keep an eye on sort of the iterations of flexion that you can get. And finally, do you remember the first ever Mobility WOD video we ever did?
Was it the one where you pointed the camera at your crotch?
Oh man, I knew it. I think, as you called it, nut shorts. Yeah. Hey, are those the shorts you wore where you expose yourself to the world? But that bottom position of your squat, take a look at this, right? We have people who are doing Jefferson curls, but who aren't in this position, because guess what I'm in right now? A tractioned, great spinal flexion position. That's why Louis Simmons made the reverse hyper, to be able to restore some of that normal flexion, because his athletes couldn't do this. So once again, hanging out in the bottom position of a squat, turns out spinal flexion, and important for healthy joints that aren't just jammed towards extension and range. See you guys next time.